Folks, did you watch Sunday's address to the nation by President Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa? Is it just me, or is he very confused about how President Trump and the United States came to their understanding of the diplomatic relations between South Africa and the United States? I mean, after all, this problem long predates President Trump. But President Ramaphosa seems convinced that other actors are the ones informing him, not the 19 national intelligence agencies the United States has, not our friends, partners, and allies, not interviews done by the refugees coming over here. None of that apparently applies. It just all seems to be groups that he claims are speaking out against South Africa. Let's listen in to hear what he had to say on Sunday.
As a country, we are aware that the stance taken by the United States administration has been influenced by a sustained campaign of disinformation by groups and individuals within our country, in the United States and elsewhere. These people who are spreading disinformation are endangering and undermining South Africa's national interests, destroying South African jobs, and weakening our country's relations with one of our most important partners.
So hold on a second there. People are undermining South Africa's position with one of its most important partners. If the United States is one of your most important partners, why were you so disrespectful over the Lady R incident? Why did you ignore the polite diplomatic request for 5 months before you finally before Brigidi finally made a public statement and forced you to say something? If we're one of the most important trading partners, why do you impose tariffs on our poultry and ban our pork and put quotas on automobile imports while letting the Chinese flood your market with cars? If we're one of your most important trading partners. If we're one of the most important trading partners, why do you look a gift horse in the mouth after 25 years of duty-free access to our marketplace and then mislead the public in South Africa about the state and condition of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act? Why do you mislead people and spend the entire year insulting, belittling, and attacking President Trump, as well as mocking him and blaming him for the relationship and blaming, obviously, the actors he's talking about are AfriForum, Solidarity, and some folks in the Democratic Alliance who went to the States? But ask yourself this question, South Africa, Mzansi. Who is the trade negotiator for South Africa with the United States to lower the tariffs? And oh, by the way, these tariffs weren't applied to South Africa. They were applied to 90 countries who are treating America unfairly. So who is your lead trade negotiator? Does anybody know the name? I don't. Apparently you have a special representative who never goes to America, Mkabisi Jonas. You don't have an ambassador for nearly a year now, because the last one was a racist who got evicted from the country for publicly calling America racist and calling Donald Trump the leader of global white supremacy. But we're one of your most valued partners. And then the week of the G20 summit, your foreign minister goes on CNN's Misinformation White Genocide mockumentary and calls Donald Trump a white supremacist. And then you mock the president on at least 3 occasions and openly mislead the world. Who is the one spreading disinformation? Is it people accurately saying that please don't punish South Africa for the things they've done against America? We want the people to have their jobs, which is what AfriForum and Solidarity did when they came to America, and the DA. Or is it the politicians in South Africa who are gaslighting South Africans in the world and are playing the role of victim when they are the provocateurs of this dispute, of this diplomatic row? It is South Africa. It is Ramaphosa who mocked the president. It is not President Trump who mocked Ramaphosa. So, do you really think that President Trump and the U.S. government, the bureaucracy, the intelligence community, the policy establishment, all the institutions are listening to AfriForum, Solidarity, and members of the Democratic Alliance, or podcasters, or scholars in America about what's going on in South Africa? No. 19 federal intelligence agencies, dozens of international friends, partners, and allies who share information about South Africa, the diplomatic community itself, not to mention all the combined experience that senior people in U.S. government have in relating to South Africa, having worked with it in international fora, at the African Union, and in Africa itself and South Africa. This is clearly meant to be a warning or a threat to South Africans who are speaking out of turn, in his view. And we should listen into more of what he has to say so that it's clear that this is a threat.
We must remind these people that South Africa is a constitutional democracy with a Bill of Rights that guarantees equality under the law. We have an independent judiciary able to uphold our constitution and defend the rights of all South Africans. We are a country that has a tradition of dialogue.
A constitution upholds the rights of all South Africans. Really? What about government overreach? That's the purpose of the Constitution, to protect citizens from overreach of the government. What about the abuse of racial minorities with 145 race-based laws? That's not misinformation. That's not disinformation. Those are the laws. What about 27,000 murders? That's real. Or the failures of broad-based black economic empowerment and enriching the majority of the population. Total failures. What about the lies told by the politicians in South Africa about expropriation without compensation, falsely claiming that there's no land being expropriated? Then why do you need the law? You already have a mechanism under Section 25 of the Constitution that allows you to expropriate land in the public interest for a public good, provided you pay just and fair compensation and the owner agrees. So why do you need a law? And why pass a law if you have no intention of using it? So gaslighting people saying that no land is being confiscated is just bogus, because obviously your intent is to confiscate land without compensation. Nil equals zero. And we've already seen this in play. We now see the captured South African Human Rights Commission recommending that municipal authorities expropriate the property of lawful landowners and homeowners at Hartbeespoort in the name of equity, not in restoration of land rights, not in settling past land claims. There are no land claims to settle here. It's simply stealing from people based on who they are, which in this case happens to be white, to give to other people based on who they are, happens to be black, in the name of equity. That's morally reprehensible, and it's also unconstitutional and illegal.
That in the report, the Department of Water and Sanitation has, over many years, not taken the steps required of it to ensure redress for black and female applicants in Hartbeespoort. And that's the basis on which we found that they have unfairly discriminated against black and female applicants, because in terms of the law, unfair discrimination is not only an act of commission, but it can also occur as a result of an act of commission. We have indicated in the report that the department must consider all legal mechanisms available to it to regularize the occupation on the shoreline of Hartbeespoort. And of course, that those options, legal options, will include evictions, but we've also indicated that they should also consider expropriation, which is also a legal tool that is available to the department in order for them to ensure that the resources of this country are equitably shared.
And South Africa is the one violating the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which guarantees private property rights and people freed from unwarranted confiscation of their property. In South Africa, they violated the African Growth and Opportunity Act by not respecting property rights. In South Africa, it's violating its constitution. But let's talk about that constitution that Cyril Ramaphosa wants to tell you about. Section 16 of the South African Constitution guarantees freedom of expression, which includes freedom of the press, the right to receive or impart information, and freedom of artistic and academic expression. Academic and the right to receive and impart information is exactly what the folks who supposedly are spreading disinformation are doing. You can't prove it's disinformation, because it isn't. And that's also not a crime. The South African Constitution also guarantees the right to freedom of association in Section 18, stating that everyone has the right to associate with whomever they choose. So those South Africans you're accusing of spreading disinformation by sharing information with the Trump administration have the right to associate with those people under your own constitution. The South African Constitution also guarantees the right to freedom of movement to everyone within the borders and the right to leave the republic. Therefore, it is perfectly within their right to travel to America or to to Berlin or to London or to Amsterdam or Paris to talk to officials abroad about the situation in South Africa. They have a right to expression, a right to association, and a right to travel. Those rights about the right to move are enshrined in Section 21 of the Bill of Rights. The South African Constitution protects against government overreach primarily through the supremacy of this Constitution, the rule of law, and the separation of powers with a system of checks and balances, and an entrenched Bill of Rights, which I've just alluded to and mentioned, and independent state institutions, except they aren't independent. So what is Ramaphosa all about here? Is he threatening South Africans? He's very much mistaken. America didn't need AfriForum and Solidarity to come talk to them, or the DA, or anybody else, or podcasters. They know full well, the government, what's going on in South Africa, have known for years. We simply chose as a nation to look the other way. If anybody's at fault here, blame the American administrations of Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden for looking the other way at these actions taking place in South Africa. Well, that's no longer the case. Trump doesn't have to run for office again. He doesn't care about public opinion and about people pussyfooting around. So there's no disinformation here. You just don't like the truth. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? Was he threatening people? What was the point of including this in his speech to celebrate the joy of the G20 success? You tell me. Cheers.